This is the one that Mark asked about yesterday when he was saying, did you have a chance, Trevor, to talk about the linkage of scouting requirements to the new program for children and youth? We're going to spend a lot of time on that. We'll talk a little bit more about ways to recruit members of the church back into scouting and that sort of thing. I was having a great conversation a couple days ago, I think it was with Chuck, about how, remember as missionaries, we would go out, if you were teaching the first discussion about God and Jesus Christ to someone who wasn't a Christian, you kind of had to spend a little bit more time. But if you were speaking to somebody who had already read the Bible, it's a more fertile audience in terms of knowing, at least relating to what you're describing. Same thing with members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They know the scouting program. Maybe in 20 years they won't, but right now they are an audience that knows that program. Many of them have uniforms. It's an easy entree for them to come back in if the proper inspiration, leadership, assistance is provided. Okay, cover all these things. Okay. We talked a lot about this so far. Religion is in scouting. Where does religion come in? My reply is it's already there. And this was Wayne Bishop, yeah. He did look like Wade, what did Charles said, he looks more like Baden Powell than Baden Powell does. All right, so with members of the church and interacting with councils that are not largely Latter-day Saints, these are a few things to remember. We use the full title of the church. Most councils have been directed by BSA to do that. We have to be very careful, though, as members of the church and scouters, we don't slip into their language and call it like the Church of the Latter-day Saints or the LDS Church, without using, we got to follow our own rules too. You use the full title the first time, and then you can use LDS as an abbreviation. Try not to travel on Sunday, camp on Sunday, do our best. We choose not to if possible. Close in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. I have said prayers at BSA meetings where people come to me afterwards and said, oh, this is a mixed audience, you shouldn't close in the name of Jesus Christ. And so, once I did not do that, and I felt guilty ever since. This is who I am, this is who I pray, this is how I pray. So I'd be very careful and let people know I'm going to pray after my manner of praying, and anybody else who has a different faith system, they can pray after their manner of praying.
No, just a real quick point. Elder Hammond was once asked to give a prayer at a national executive board meeting when he was the young general president. And before he prayed, as he was asked, he said, are you comfortable with me praying in the manner that I pray? And there they are asking him, and they said, of course. So okay.
Okay, good.
So they covered that ahead of time.
Okay, that's
At
good.
the time of the ask.
And of course, the word of wisdom, and then another one I would add, if I had remembered, is clean language. Everything in it for the strength of you. So we have two initiatives. One will be children and youth. We're going to talk about that. And then we also have this for the strength of the youth. Dating, dress and appearance, honesty and integrity, service, language, there it is, music and dancing, sexual purity, work and self-reliance. This is such a key thing for us as ambassadors of the Lord to have others, our members of the church, embrace for the strength of youth, or at least know about it. Hey, there's an organization out there that not only teaches this to the kids, but really holds them to it and champions this. A lot of people just don't know that these standards are things that some people really hold dear. The new children and youth program, the goals for the vision of the church is to strengthen the rising generation's faith in Jesus Christ and help children, youth, and their families progress along the covenant path as they meet life's challenges. Speaking of the pamphlet there's a lot of good information on there that was released in 2020 or before 2020 as the program was being released in terms of helping kids set goals, helping parents understand how to help them do that, so that's a good thing. It's kind of a program that's very individualistic in terms of the youth are to set their goals and in some cases to work on them on their own. There's not really an effort at the young men or young women or primary level to find out what all the goals are of all the youth and consolidate them and figure out, oh, there's 3 kids that want to go into aviation. Kids go to the airport, climb the control tower. It's not like that. So it's a little bit decentralized, but it's totally okay for us as leaders in the church to ask the youth, how's it going in their program? Brad asked one of his grandchildren, I think it was, is that right? And the son said, I don't even know what you're talking about.
What
What was that?
The said, what program?
What program? And so there's an opportunity for you to tell them, yeah, we launched this a couple years ago. It's what we're to focus on these days. The whole world is doing it. You know, however you want to promote that.
Your grandson's not the only one, Brad, so just, don't feel bad that you're.
I helped you understand what it was, but.
Yeah. Maybe it's important for us as ambassadors to keep some of those smaller booklets that have the goals where they can write in it at hand, and you can hand it to them right then. Do both at the same time, promote the program, both but add that and scouting. All right, there's 4 areas of focus: spiritual, social, physical, and intellectual. And the kids are encouraged to have at least 2 goals in each, and as they complete that goal, then to replace it with another one. It's a very simple program. You could do it anywhere in the world. That's the beauty of it, is it's so simple. And then they achieve these goals through gospel learning, service and activities, and personal development. Now, when this first came out, my colleague Amy Tadlock and I sat down and mapped out all of these areas: spiritual, social, physical, and intellectual, and service area activities in blue, personal development in red, and if it's a merit badge, it's identified as such. Such that if you were a youth in a scout troop trying to earn the Eagle Scout rank, you could set a goal, for example, under physical, to earn the life-saving merit badge. Or you could, under intellectual, set a goal to earn the interpreter strip. Or in social, become a den chief. Spiritual, become a chaplain's aide. The idea is this is to be an idea generator for the youth, or maybe if the youth are working with their parents or a scout leader, if they happen to be, to think of ways to map these so you can get multiple or dual credit while working on the church program and the scouting program at the same time.
How do you get access to this chart?
So this is just a mapping to VSA. At the end of this brief, we map it to Cub Scouts, venturing, Sea Ship, and exploring, I think.
Aren't we supposed to be able to have access to all the?
Yeah, so Neil, how's that going to happen? How are they going to get over
This image?
And all those 6 mappings at the end of it back up.
Well, all
All of the presentations, including the backup, are currently available on the Vanguard Vision Conference site. So in your booklet, that like Lynn has right there where she's taking notes, up near the front is a big URL, a website location, and a beautiful QR code that will get you to that download.
Ah, there we go. Look at that.
Okay? So all of these images. And Brad, if you want, Brad, were you the one asking? If you want higher res images, whatever you want, you let me know.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I have all of those mappings in the back. We'll get to those in a
It
second.
just seems like most of our healthiest families in scouting that are active ought to have access to something like that.
We just got to find somebody to deliver it to them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and feel free, you can share these briefs with others. That's the whole idea as an ambassador. Take this information and populate it out there. So what if a family is on the path and they want to try to find a new unit to join? This is a good decision tree to help that. First off, begin with determining what your family's needs are. We only have boys, or we have boys and girls, or the parents don't want to be involved, or they do. All those things are things to think about at the beginning. Then you go visit a variety of engineering units. There's some websites on BSA, your adventure starts here, and then from there you can find, there's also pin drops where you can find the closest geographically units to you. You can learn a little bit more just on the web, like who's their charter organization, where they meet, maybe a few other things. If you're a commissioner, you could look up their scores that they get from their being reviewed as a commissioner. Find the unit that fits them best. Investigate a recently organized Latter-day Saint family-focused unit. There may be some family LDS. What I use the term LDS legacy unit, meaning it's culturally tied to the church in terms of how your culture and your leadership. It's not chartered by the church, but it's there to promote those who have similar-minded interests. Nevertheless, non-members could join as well. If you don't find any in your investigation or within traveling distance, then consider starting a new unit near your own. And I think many of you have already done that. If you do start a new unit near your own, try to achieve gold in the first year, and then you can earn this William D. Boyce Award if you're a significant founder in that effort. That's a great award to earn. Great achievement. Can't think of a better legacy than start a unit and then have it prosper and continue on. It touches lives of youth you will never meet. So this was Troop 702 that I helped found as a committee chair. We met in a really nice barn. You know, we saw the picture of, I guess it was, yeah, Mark Francis barn on our Monday event. This one was a wedding barn, and it was just brand new, built before COVID, and they hardly even used it except for us. And members of the church owned it. They said we could use it for free. It was essentially located in Vista. And so I was the committee chair. I talked earlier about my friend Andy Zeneger, who came to the church through these efforts. He became an ASM. And then Eric Kimmel was the scoutmaster, and Andy's wife, Christy, was the new member coordinator. And so that core team brought all these together. We started with 50 scouts and 20 cubs. Then COVID hit and our numbers failed. We had produced 15 Eagle Scouts since the church left scouting, just in this one unit. Now, many of them were already star in life at the beginning of the journey, so it wasn't that difficult, but we actually have a few who were hardly on their path at all when COVID hit, and now they're progressing towards it. Good unit, I love it, it's been fantastic. I was the committee chair, and if I had anything I would say, the hardest thing for me was finding a bank account and getting that whole EIN thing set up. There's not much guidance on scouts on how to do that, you just gotta navigate that yourself. And then secondarily, especially moving with members of the church, helping them to understand we're different than it was before. Even though we look the same, we're in the same uniforms, we don't have a bishop making callings. The committee chair has to do all that, or the institutional head if they're all COR. So that means that me as a committee chair, I had to go make invites for people to do things, like as if I was the bishop in the old organization. Yeah, that's a little different. We had to have dues, or we would do an annual due. It'd be like $25 or $50 depending on planned activity level. And then we would charge for each camp out usually $10, depending on how expensive it was. That's different than Latter-day Saints.
I guess every unit determines that.
What's that?
Every unit determines their own budget.
Yeah,
and what they
yes,
charge.
they do. We created patches for us, we created t-shirts, and all that fun stuff that builds camaraderie. You have to think about taxes at the end of the year. Registration is a little bit more challenging. You know, when the church was involved, we would just turn in our membership lost roster for registration because everybody was automatically registered. That was easy. Now it's not the same. So those are just things to think about as you consider creating a unit. Yeah, and have committee meetings. The good thing is you're no longer, somebody mentioned the conference earlier this week, you're no longer dealing with draftees, you're dealing with all volunteers. So when you have a meeting, people show up, you know, and they participate. So that was good. Topics to have conversations on. So I kind of wrote this just off the top of my head, but now that I see it, it's very similar to what Brad, you shared. The 4 aims of scouting, was it leadership development, children development?
Citizenship training, character development,
Personal fitness. So I missed out, well, doing our personal fitness.
It's very close.
Okay. Wow, okay, so we briefed through that. We still have about 10 more minutes. Before we jump into discussion, let me just share really quickly the slides in the back up, because I think you'll want to see these mappings. Oh, here's a place to go for more info if you need it. Okay. Oh, probably the bracket doesn't show in the slideshow presentation.
No, you can get at it right there with your slide sorter.
I just didn't go far enough.
No, in a slideshow, the hidden ones don't show up. So.
Okay. All right, so I mentioned about this mapping. This very first page describes how it works and all the details and gives suggestions on how to do it, including tying in the Gospel Living app with that, which has that logo there, justserve.org, spiritual, social, physical, intellectual, all of those things, and how we can add BSA to it. This is the one for Cub Scouts. It's more generic, it's not tied specifically to an earning the Eagle rank, but it does give you ideas of where a Cub could, for example, a 10-day camp would be a social thing, so they can have that as a goal. Learn about a sport, that'd be a physical thing. I already shared this one on BSA for Scouts. Here's one for venturing. Now, on venturing, we assumed that a venturer would probably want to earn the Ranger Award as their goal to strive for, their significant goal. So all the ones with the asterisks are items within earning the Ranger Award. for Sea Scouts. I don't know that program very well. Just look at Lynn from your perspective and my name.
Yeah, for the first time so far.
Yeah. What's the Koch Cup race? Is that?
Coke, that's
Coke.
Coke, that's one that they feature,
Okay.
but you can race solos.
Okay.
And so you try to get, you know, it's not everybody, you participate in other events,
Like
like a
regionals.
regatta,
Yeah.
and then the winners get to go and do that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a big one, but regattas, lots of areas, well, what used to be areas hold regattas, but looks like you've got, instead of the Coke Cup, because Coke Cup's more national.
Okay. Here's one for exploring. Now you'll see here, at the top right, we put the recommended ages for this. This one's 10 to 20. I didn't realize exploring was that young. Because some members of the church may not be familiar, like for Sea Scouts, it's 14 to 20. Venturing Center, 14 to 20. I think Cubs is 5 to 10. And many members of the church may not know Cub Scouts goes down to 5, because we didn't start until they were baptized, or age of 8. So Brad, is that right? Does exploring really start at 10? Is there a new program for younger youth?
I don't know.
There may be.
I've never heard of that.
It might be at the middle school level. I'll need to research that.
That seems too
They're-
early to me.
They're
Yeah.
clubs, I think they call them clubs.
Exploring clubs, I think that's what it
Exploring
is.
clubs,
Yeah.
and so,
Yeah, I just
like,
don't think they would
you know, like the
have
Coast
these-
Guard has a club that you can do, but it's through the exploring program.
Okay. Now, if somebody is working on the Light and Truth Award, the Children of Youth program, and the Children of Youth program, here would be a mapping of where they can have the goals that they're working on. Now, all of these would be gospel learnings. The blue and red areas are grayed out, so to speak, the blanket and these tied in the brown area. You might remember in Vanguard Award Religious Routine Out Duty to God, there's, I think, 6 or 7 main areas, and we just bucket them in those areas to show, so you could have Vanguard Award tied towards earning your Vanguard Award. It's kind of duplicative though, but there it is. And then you've seen this slide a couple of times before, but promoting Vanguard Religious Awards and mapping them back to scouting, this is how it's done. All right, I think that's my last slide, yeah. Any thoughts, questions? We got a couple minutes before we need to dash off to the service project.
Just a comment, and we can play this. You had what LD or Vanguard Scouting represents. I think another one could be, we aim to support the family of scouting, or being that champion of the family, right? And seeing that, hey, we want the whole family involved in this program. It's not just a drop Ethan off at Scouts once a week.
Yes, yes.
It's, hey, Elsie's involved, Camilla's involved, Caleb's involved, Ethan's involved, Colleen's involved, and Justin is involved in the whole program, and maybe being a champion for that this is a program where we're really looking at saying, how do we involve the whole family in that conversation?
Yeah, so when we got to this decision tree that determined, hopefully we could, please consider being actively involved. This could be something, may look foreign to you to put on that scout shirt. Some of the members of the church may not have had that before.
Or even like Jimmy
Just
and
drinking
Jimmy and
Kool-Aid.
Carlo, what they've done, they've brought their kids, so, or their grandkids, right?
Mhm.
That this isn't even now a single generation, this is multiple generations of, and Charles was in, I brought my grandkids a couple of years ago, and seeing some of that, legacy as much as anything of how do we, be a champion for some of that as well.
I agree. All right, well, I've really enjoyed working with each of you though this week, and I'm impressed with what we've learned and agreed to kind of take on as we represent scouting to members of the church. And hopefully there's some tools here that'll be useful for you. Feel free to look them up anytime, refresh your memory. You can also reach out to me. My website was at the back end of this, not my website, my email address was at the back end of this. I think I gave you all my business card too. Feel free to reach out anytime.
It's good stuff.
Thank you. So much good for us to do here. Thank you.
We'll clap for you.